So I've been getting a lot of questions lately on how to subnet an IP address, specifically within a C class portion of IP addressing. So today we're going to go over my simple way of how to subnet, and hopefully it works for you on the CCNA exam. So first, let's go over the fundamentals of what an IP address is. So an IP address consists of 4 octets. So generally you'll see an IP address is 192.168.0. Number, let's say 1. Now, even though each number here may not mean anything to you specifically, when we go down into the root of it, I'll explain how these numbers are derived. So an octet with an IP address, there's 4 octets. 1, 2, 3, 4. We call them octets because within each octet there are 8 bits. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, each bit within each octet has a numerical value attached to it. So the first bit always equals 128. Second bit equals 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. Now, the 192 and the 168 and the 0 and the 1 within this specific IP address all derives from these bits. So, as in computers, we work in bits, 1s and 0s. So, in order to get 192, we need to turn on some bits and turn off some bits. So to get 182, we turn on the first bit, 128, okay? We go to the 64 bit. We add it up, what does it equal? 128, 64, 68, 192. We turn on this bit. Now since we have got to 182, we can turn off these other bits right here. Alright, let's go to 168 now. To get 168, what do we have to do? Okay, let's go down the line. 128. Obviously we don't turn on 64 because it would equal 182. Let's try 32. 10. 6, we get 160. Okay, so to go down the line, 8. Let's turn on the 8-bit. Get us 168. So we go down the line, we turn on the first bit, we turn off the second bit, turn on the third bit, 16, we turn off the fourth bit, the fifth bit, 8, we turn on, other ones are turned off. Okay. Dot 0 for the third octet. 0, so we turn off all the bits. Dot 1, very simple, the last bit. Now, that is what an IP address means when we cut it down to bits, 1s and 0s. Just to reiterate, every bit with an IP address, within each octet, it stays the same. The first bit equals 128, second 164, the third is 32, fourth equals 16, and 8, 4, 2, 1. Same thing here with the second octet, 128, 64, 32, 16, 8421. There's a pattern here, as we can see. So now let's talk about this chart we have here. So as you've probably tried already to subnet, it can be difficult, but if you follow this chart, it can be quite simple. And now within the class C addressing scheme, we only work within the 4th octet, okay? But to go back before that though, if we add up all of these bits, we turn them all on, the highest number we can go to is 255, okay? Just remember that in the future. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So let me erase this. So as you prepare for the CCNA exam, you're generally only going to subnet within the Class C range, which is from /24 to /30, or the subnet mask of 255, 255, 255.0, .120, .192, .224, 240, 248, and 252. Okay. So when we go back to the bits, the /24 comes from, what it means is that as we go through when you see a /24 or /25 or going to /30, what it means is that all the bits up to 24 are being used. So /24 means that these bits you cannot use. I'm just using ones represented, but it means that you only have 24 bits have been used, you only have 8 more to go, okay? If you're in 25, the first bit of the 4th octet is being used, you got full IP addresses going on forward. So I like to use this chart here to help me subnet. It's done me well, and it's done a lot of other people well. So I'll talk about how to use it. So when it comes to this IP address here, 192.168.0.1, we give a /24 CIDR, which is just an abbreviation of the subnet mask. This /24 can also represent 255, 255.255.0. Okay. Now, on the CCNA, you're gonna, or in the networking world, you're gonna have to notice that you're gonna have to know how many IP addresses are within the /24 subnet, how many usable hosts there are, and how many subnets there are as well within this particular range. So the easy steps I do in order to identify how many subnets and how many IPs and usable IPs we have is I get 256 and I subtract it from our subnet mask, .0. Okay. I get 256. I subtract 2. I get 254. Okay. Within the /24 subnet, I have 254 usable IPs. So let me demonstrate where this number comes from. And the 256 as well. So 192.168.0, 0 to 192.168. .0, .255. Okay. Now, what I forgot to mention as well is that within every subnet, the first IP you have within a subnet scheme is always the network address. So .0 is our network address. .255 is our broadcast address. Okay. So, let me erase this. The 254 comes from you have 254 usable IPs within a /24 from .1 to .254. .0 is our network address and .255 is our broadcast address. So if you add that up, you have 254 usable IPs. .0, even though generally we don't count from 0 when it comes to subnetting, .0 is still an IP address. It's our network address. We cannot use it to assign to a host, but it exists. .255 is our broadcast address. That's still an IP address, but you cannot use that to be assigned to a host within the network. So that's how we get the number 256 within IPs a /24. But you gotta remember, you gotta subtract 2 from that because your first and your last are not usable. Let's go on to a different. Let's go on to a /25. Okay. Okay. So you're given this IP address and you're given the subnet mask of a /25. So let's figure this out. Let's figure out our network address, our broadcast address, and how many usable IPs we have within this particular subnet. So let's go to /25. Let's look on our chart. Okay, 128. We always subtract it from 256. What do we get? 128. Okay. This number here represents total number of IPs. Total number of IPs. Don't forget that. Now what you do is you subtract 2 to get usable IPs. Okay? There's a big difference between total and usable IPs. Okay? Now, let's figure out what the range is for this particular subnet. So we go 192.168.0 to 127. Okay. Now you're going to say, how come you didn't put 128 here? It's because .0 is still an IP address. So if we start counting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we go to 127, that is our total number of IPs. Okay, so .0 is our network address, and .127 is our broadcast. Okay, so the usable IPs, or the usable hosts within this particular range, is .1 to .126. So now if you look up towards our chart again, number of subnets, what does that mean? Okay, so remember how I said within /24, it can if you turn on all the bits, the number will equal 255. Let me explain what that means. Now, there's two subnets within this particular subnet mask range, because if we go down the line, 128, to 255. So we were able to further break this down and make another subnet within this mask from 128 to 255. 128 is our network. 255 is our broadcast. So the usable IPs here are .129 to .254. Just think of it as there's a certain pi here, and the whole pi is 255. Okay. Each one of these masks here is telling us how many pieces of pie we can have within that 255. Okay. So we were able to go within /25, have two different particular subnets from the network, from .1 to 126 and .129 to .254. Okay. These are all within the same network, but we further broke this down. So any IP address within here and here, we will talk to each other. Okay. So a common question you might get is, on a practice test or any other test to say, is give me the network, broadcast, total number of IPs, and number of hosts. Okay, so let's do an example. Let's do 10.0.0.5/26. Okay. So let's try and figure out what the network address is, the broadcast, the total number of IPs, and the number of hosts. Okay. Let's go to our chart. Use the chart always. /26, 192. 256 minus 192. Okay. 64. Okay. Total number of IP is 64. Subtract from 2, 62. So we know the total number of IPs is 64. Total number of hosts is 62. Alright. Now we have this information. The rest is very easy. Okay. We just go 10.0.0. We know that we're dealing with 64 IPs here, and the broadcast and network address here for this particular subnet the IP address is .5. So it falls within 0 to falls within the range of our 64 IPs. So we just started .0. Remember, .0 is still an IP. So to 63. The next subnet network address will be .64. And just going down the line. 64. I'm not the best at math, so let's add it up. 64, 64, 8, and 28. Let's do it again. 6, 7, 8, 9, 192. See, there's a pattern here, guys? Okay. So .5 falls in which subnet here? This one, okay? So we know that the network address for this one is 10.0.0.0. The broadcast address for this IP address we have here is .63 because we use the last address for the broadcast. All right, very easy. Any more questions? Hit me up on the comment section. If you would like some CCNA training, hit us up at SoCalTechAcademy.com. Visit our Facebook, Instagram page. You can also send an email to contact@SoCalTechAcademy.com. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions. See you soon.